Well, welcome back. It's your boy Nick, popping in here quick, late night video. Wanted to kind of, one, catch up. I mean, it's been well over a week since I had my last video drop. A few different things came up, had an out of town wedding, all that jazz. Got a good little sickness going on. I think my body just really got ran down from not listening to it and getting the sleep it needed. But that's besides the fact. I want to keep this pretty short. I know you're either watching this late night or early morning. If you're across the pond, it could be middle of the day. So just kind of depends on where you're at. I just want to get to the point and cover some quick TA things I'm looking at on AMC. Different kind of approach from before. You usually see my upper trend lines, all that jazz and everything from there. I just want to point out some similarities I'm looking at, possibilities as we go into earnings coming on August 4th after hours, and just kind of what I'm seeing in regards to potential movement going forward. So, as always, not a licensed financial advisor. Everything I do say is just an educated opinion from time on the desk, holding a Series 763 in my SIE, and we are dealing with one of the most manipulated stocks, arguably in history. You got GameStop and all the other ones, along with HKD. We'll kind of stay away from that. There's a lot of different viewpoints I have on it, what it could have been, ties to WEF, World Economic Forum. So just want to kind of hop into it, but as always, like I said, just take what I say with a grain of salt. These are just similarities I'm looking at and some things we could potentially see going forward. So right now we have the daily chart up, just representing a day worth of trading within each candle here. Over about the last 2 years, I have it zoomed in a little bit to give us kind of the May effect, along with everything since then. So hopping into it here, I kept it pretty simple in regards to TA on different resistance lines, along with just basically areas I'm looking to break out of. So as we get into it here, a big thing that I'm looking at, and we'll get into the 4 hour and a little bit more kind of near term similarities, but I did kind of want to highlight this. I've been looking at it along with a lot of people in the Discord in regards to kind of movement that we've seen historically prior to big movements within AMC, both on the tape and within the options chain. So one thing that's really intriguing me here is obviously you got your 50 EMA, your 200 SMA, and then these are just TTM scalper alerts, so it kind of gives you high points, low points, and buy triggers and everything within that. So take them with a grain of salt. I'm not going to hit on these too much today. I kind of use these more on micro terms, but I thought it could kind of help with some more similarities into things that I'm looking at here. So as we kind of break this down, we got our VPR over here. Again, this is over the, give me a quick second here, 2 years. So it does go back further. So these lines on the VPR are dating back 2 years from today, but they will play a factor in movement I'm seeing here. So these lines are just some key resistance lines that I think we're going to be hitting along the way within this movement. This doesn't mean these are tops or necessarily high points that I see. This is just kind of the micro resistance that I'm looking at, just in regards to this video and what to expect going forward. So the big thing that I kind of stressed on yesterday, so after Tuesday's close, I was like, hey, we are a bit hot on the RSI on the 4 hour. There is a chance we fill some gaps within VPR in the low 16s to mid 16s before we continue the run further. That's just kind of looking on the micro and some things we've kind of seen before. We get stomped out with a high RSI that just kind of gives us a very near-term micro downtrend. So this is something I kind of want to highlight here. I'm very happy I was wrong. We had a healthy 8% day, good old 801%. I know that brings back a lot of memories for people in regards to who's been in this play for a very long time. But going into this here, I've noticed a lot of times that AMC likes to do kind of these cup and handles, but in regards to the movements that it has, it seems to always have the right side of the cup just a little bit higher before you kind of get your handle retrace and then your big movements. So that's just a trend that I've seen on some major upticks, and this is something I want to get into here. So I'll provide both a bearish scenario and a bullish scenario, because the script can flip very quick, especially with ER coming up on Thursday after hours. So getting into it here, these red lines are basically the high point of the left part of the cup and the high points of the right part of the cup, along with kind of the retrace following. So basically from this point here, and this is on the daily, obviously it changes a little bit when you get more into the micro, but something that I wanted to point out, because yes, the RSI is hot, but in regards to kind of what we've done historically, AMC doesn't always respect RSI. It can move through it can move quicker, and just kind of get some solid movements before it kind of gets a deeper retrace. So what I took here, and these three lines are all the exact same distance, if you want to say. So it's roughly about 14.5% from the left side of the cup to the right side of the cup. So what I did was I kind of just took it and laid it over our current setup, and it's very intriguing with where it lined up, because this is your 200 SMA on the daily. So this is about a 14.5% move from the top, I think it's 1837, bringing it up to about 21-ish, just a little bit over it. If I don't have this white line here as a resistance, it lines up almost perfectly with the 200 SMA. So basically on the bullish scenario, and I'll kind of back up into the June later in the video here, but in the bullish scenario, what I do see, and we have room for it on the RSI on the daily, what I do see in a bullish scenario is we're going to go up and test this 1884 line, and after hours we moved up to 1852. I think we even caught a couple pennies higher than that, but basically the line I'm looking for near term is 1884. So if we reject at 1884 and get our retrace, I think that will happen very early on. So those are kind of your two scenarios. We could go up and test this 1884 in the pre-market, and I'll show this in the 4-hour chart here in a sec. So we could go up and test this 1884 pre-market and then get our retrace that I'm about to mention, and then shoot up higher into the later half of the day before we kind of pull back into Thursday with the earnings report Thursday after bell. And I'll kind of explain scenarios with that as well. But basically the mark I'm looking for tomorrow is this 1884 line, because if we can break through this, I don't know if you guys remember historically what Adam Aaron referenced in regards to 1884, the Louisville Slugger, kind of the inception date of that baseball bat. So sure, it's some tinfoil stuff, but 1884, if you look back, has been some pretty important numbers in regards to continuation of movement. We held it as a support, came under, tested it, kind of bounced around here, and then once we came back up and broke through it, if you notice, we got this test here with the 50 EMA that led to a little bit bigger pop. We're well above the 50 EMA now on the daily. So I think this 1884 mark is going to be very important. You can kind of see just the resistance it's had in the past here. So if we can break 1884, I think we very well could go up and test this 21 region. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be tomorrow. That'd be crazy if it was. I'm all for it. But I think what's likely going to happen is we could do something kind of similar to what we have over here prior to the June run, is we go up, test it with a top wick, and then get rejected just a little bit, and kind of have some scaling candles, because we have a daily tomorrow and then one more on Thursday, to where we really could go and test this 21 mark, 2103 roughly. And then what I suspect to happen, I know historically people say, oh, we always get a poor reaction to earnings, I expect them to drag us down heavy. Well, this earnings is much different than any other earnings in AMC history, in my opinion. It's had probably, arguably, the best summer it's ever had, coming out of a pandemic, restructuring debt, and just sitting in a great spot fundamentally wise. The only issue is the kind of manipulation side of it. So We have the potential for an at-the-market share offering. Everyone has their own opinion on that. I personally side with Rico, and the guy's kind of talking about the benefits of it by basically forcing money, or sorry, not money, forcing volume into the play and causing new buyers to step in. That kind of triggers the lift. So we'll cover that in another video, but for the sake of this one, these are the levels I'm looking at. I don't think they'll consider an at-the-money share offering until we're above 34, somewhere between 34 and the 52 range. When that does occur, that's just the most valid or viable situation that I see. But again, cover that in another video. What I do see though, like I said, is we're going to test 1884, maybe early on in the pre-market. If that gets broken, I'm really thinking that we might actually see a very similar movement to what we saw pre-34 run and pre-June run. So whether we get the test tomorrow up at 21 or on Thursday, that's kind of micro topping out zone. Obviously, ER could just skyrocket this thing on Friday and we can go up and test some heavier levels and really get this thing kind of started. But in regards to RSI, with how hot we are on the daily, along with the 4-hour, which I'll show you here shortly, I really think we're going to kind of get the upper right part of this cup and then get our handle. So every time this has occurred in June, this was roughly 17.5%. If you're taking it from the top here down to the bottom here, that would take us about $3.65 roughly off of 21, putting us back into the mid 17s or low 17s roughly. So that's a possibility. And honestly, if you look back, if we do get that and get that deep retrace, like a 15-ish% retrace, that's a possibility. But if it's kind of a similar to the 34 run, our RSI got very hot once we got up to 34. Obviously, we're a little bit higher up on that right now. We won't get quite as deep as a retrace, but I really think once we kind of tap this 21 region, we do need a retrace for it to be a healthy movement to give us the best setup for that squeeze. So you got your phase 6 starting in September 1. It's not going to be a Thanos snap, but I will cover that in another video as well with more details kind of describing it, what it's going to do. It's including a lot of family offices. Basically going to start forcing the hand on some of these smaller guys that I think are kind of shifting out of the position, doing like micro covers now, just prepping kind of for that, because this phase 6 is no joke. Like if you've looked at AMC Big Ums or any of that, it's a very real thing that these guys are going to have to factor into their margin requirements and book allocation. So cover that in another video as well. But this is what I'm looking at on a bullish scenario. You come up and test 21 region prior to ER, and then we'll get a pullback either the day after ER or maybe the week after, like next week that happens. This pullback is going to be, when I mention pullback, like don't think, oh, we're going back to a deep retrace like this for 5, 6, 7, 8 days. Like I personally think that if we do get something similar to June, it'll be 1, 2, 3 days maybe down into like that low 17 range before we kind of build back up for a big movement, because you got your pounce from AA coming up as well. I'm excited to see what that's going to be. You got killer ERs coming out. I think it's going to blow a lot of predictions out of the water in regards to that. Obviously, they love to pull crap even on good earnings reports, but like I said, this could be something different. This doesn't have to be a topping point. We could break 200 SMA and climb, but I really think for a healthy movement, for the strongest squeeze potential going into late August, maybe even early September after phase 6, I think this kind of pullback is very good for us. So micro, that's kind of what I'm seeing, is a push up to the 21 region, slight pullback, 1 to 2, 3 days maybe. Depending on what Adam Aaron announces, it could just be a half of a day pullback, just a quick retrace into a spring to lead us up into a new trading zone and kind of breaking this 200 SMA on the daily. So that's what I'm seeing micro, just in regards to RSI. If we flip over here to the 4-hour, this is kind of just more micro approach to it with the same figures here. So this is your 14.5% line, and you kind of got your deeper retrace quick, but you got movement off of 22.35. This one came all the way down to 18.84 before you kind of came back up. So that's a pretty significant retrace. But I think once we get up here into this 14.5% zone, it's going to be something similar to where we get that 21 mark roughly up in this region, and then we get the deep retrace, whether that's right after earnings if they want to drive it down off of some BS propaganda stuff. But if you look, RSI here is extremely high. It's getting hot, so this is going to need to cool off. Like right now, sitting at roughly 84. Back here at this peak, it was about 86. So we have room to go. Like we have about three-ish points to go on the RSI to where this is why I think we could press it back up here and retest this zone before we get our retrace. Bearish scenario is basically tomorrow we were to reject this 1884 line. If that happens, I don't think it's going to be a dramatic sell-off. It could be. I know Rico's potentially talking about low 16s going that deep. It would take something pretty dramatic, but it's possible. If we throw in VPR here, I'll just show you. I don't personally think we go that deep, but that's kind of the beauty of technical analysis, is you're always going to have different opinions. But it is valid to kind of give this bearish scenario as well, because you can't deny the RSI. Like I know AMC tends to do that sometimes, but if we get this kind of rejection off of the 1884 mark, you got this gap on VPR down to 1713. If that doesn't hold around 1665, like I'm more so seeing, if we reject off of here, I'm more so seeing maybe a catch of 1665. That would be one of my lower figures to go down to, and if this happens, it would be a quick blip down. It's not going to be something like this. You had your GameStop post dividend, whatever the heck people are calling it. But I think if that does occur, it'll be very quick, and if that's the case, then I think we for sure test 21 prior to kind of getting any sort of retrace. But if 1675 region doesn't hold, that's a pretty strong support. If you look back historically there, let me just go here, 1675, where we at? Yeah. So this is kind of a bit of a supply zone right within here, to where it could distribute down if 1675 doesn't hold, and that's where you could catch in your 1630 range. But it won't be anything like this. Definitely won't be anything like this in my opinion. I think it'll be something very, very micro, to where it'll just be like a deep push down and then a spring up. And like I said, if we break the 21 mark, like we'll most likely press some upper 20s before we get the retrace. But I really think we'll most likely catch around that 21 mark, get our retrace, and then really start moving the following week. So that's kind of my scenario I'm looking at, both bullish and bearish. If you back up here, just to kind of compare, like I don't have the line drawn on this, but this is kind of about, and this is roughly, like depending on where you take the measurement off, 14.5%, I think roughly puts it around here. Not quite the peak, but obviously it's never going to be one for one. And then you get your retrace. So if you take it from here down to here, it is about a 15% retrace. So that's kind of the similar scenario you have on this movement. Not quite as deep, but this did come all the way down to 1884 mark. So that's what I'm looking at near term. Excited to see the earnings report. I'd like to see this volume continuation kind of stay up. I don't want to see much of the volume drop off. It's really significant to see kind of this cup within the volume too, because they're pulling the supply here, and then we're kind of basically re-engaging within that demand zone, to where I think that we have a good chance of making this movement that I'm seeing here. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Quick 20-minute video, just keep it short. Got tons of great traders lately in the Discord, just absolutely killing it. Rico has a phenomenal group of guys in there, just kind of shooting the shit all day in live trading, bouncing ideas back and forth. Obviously, we don't just trade the memes. Lord MC has just been killing it with his harmonics, and we just have 1K portfolio challenges, just different kind of dynamics within, so where we can watch and play the kind of demand flips on AMC while also having fun with it, helping each other out, sharpening iron. So I really recommend at least checking out the Discord, seeing what things that he has to offer in there, and just kind of getting some more perspective in regards to different trading styles. We have Wyckoff, myself, Momentum, foundational TA trader, and then harmonic trading with Lord MC. There's so many different approaches in there. From start to finish, we have new investors, experienced investors, everything across the board with financial experience wise. So great group of guys. Just wanted to plug that real quick. I will leave the link down in the bottom of the description. So if you could like, subscribe, give me a comment. It just kind of helps this content get out to more people. And I do appreciate you tuning in for this late night, early morning, midday, whatever time you're watching this as, but I hope that gives you some more perspective. So look forward to seeing how this plays out, and we'll likely get another video in prior to end of week and talk more on that ISDA and phase 6 and things of that nature. So appreciate you watching.